6, and you are listening to Issues and Answers with Norman A. Carter Jr. through the auspices of WCEG Digital Media Enterprises Incorporated. We are the worldwide community empowerment group, and our broadcasts are designed to speak life into our community, our worldwide community. For those of you who have accidentally found us today and would like to be certain and intentional about finding us in the future, we are available on several platforms. You can log on to WCEGTalkRadio.com on your computer or mobile device and click the icon that says Live, Live. Watch us on your smart TV by accessing the WCEG channel via YouTube, Roku, Fanbase, Blue Sky, Twitch, and other popular streaming services. You can watch us live on Facebook. And then you can text in your comments and questions. We love it when you do that. All that is needed is for you to become a friend of WCEG on Facebook, and you will be an active part of our program. How easy is that? Now, if you missed a live broadcast, you can always view our programs on YouTube at the end of each broadcast. Just search for WCEG Talk Radio, Issues and Answers, and you will find us there. If you have Alexa, just say, Alexa, play WCEG Talk Radio. If Alexa says no, ask it again with feeling. Now, all opinions on today's program are mine and mine alone. They do not reflect the opinions of the staff and management of WCEG Digital Media Enterprises. If you are running for an elective office, this is my addendum. If you're running for an elective office, no matter what party, don't care. Local, national, international, if we have any, but we don't. We invite you to come to WCEG Radio prior to your election and share your platform with our viewers. And after your election, come see us again and tell us about what you really are going to do. Okay? You can always reach out to our station just by dialing 404-490-8646. That's right here in the Georgia area. A lot of things we're going to cover today. Good things, bad things, hopefully things that are educational, that would improve your life and your mind. First of all, I would like to talk about a group that's personal to me. The CEO, Ms. Tanisha Estrada, has been on this program before. She is the CEO and founder of Girls Breaking Chains. And these are predominantly teenage girls who have parents that are incarcerated. And her group, Girls Breaking Chains, you remember, that's like that gospel soon. Break every chain. These are girls breaking chains. And that group is giving out an excellence scholarship of $1,500. And that is happening right now. You have to send in a 2 to 5 minute video describing how this award will empower you to rise above your parents' incarceration. And there are only a few qualifications. You must be a female senior in high school in Georgia, have a grade point average of 2.5 or higher, must have a college acceptance letter, and has a parent that is incarcerated. I have had you would send that to info at girlsbreakingchains.org. Again, that's info at girlsbreakingchains.org. I have had the pleasure of working with this organization several times, and it's really uh, in part heartbreaking but heartwarming to see even the girls that are in this organization are in a program where they're actually reaching out to women and men who are incarcerated and providing them with some basic needs that normally they would have to pay for at whatever stores they have in these in prisons. So and they do this once or twice a year, and it's always a pleasure for me to work with them. And I hope that you may help out some young person by allowing them to take advantage of that scholarship. Boy, you know what? There's a lot of news today, a lot of stuff that's going on. You know, it just came to my mind before I just came on the air. Uh, my wife and I were I'm getting over a cold. She is in the midst of one. So we were basically like that tune, Band of Gold for all you old folks. You know that song by Frida Payne, where the woman said on the honeymoon that she and her new husband were in separate rooms. Well, we basically were in separate rooms. Sunday, we didn't go out. We listened to our church service via Zoom, for one of a better word, by online. And because we were in separate rooms, she had the computer and I was in a different room, an adjoining room. And at the end of the service, she asked me because I made a comment about the service. And she says, "You heard all that?" And I said, "Yeah, I heard it." I said, "That preacher, he was yelling the whole time of the whole sermon." And this is one of my big complaints, and I want all you preachers to listen to this. It's really, when you think about it, it's insulting if the only way you feel you can communicate with people is to yell at them. That doesn't make you a great speaker. It makes you a yeller. You can't talk to people in a conversational tone and keep your service interesting, your sermon interesting. You feel you have to yell, probably to keep your audience awake. Let me tell you something, folks. You don't have to yell. You're not doing the Sermon on the Mount. Most of you have a microphone. So it's not a Sermon on the Mount in the desert, really. Uh, you have a microphone, use it. You don't have to yell to the microphone unless you yourself are hard of hearing. I move on. I'm going to talk about a lady that I think needs to be honored. Zernona Clayton. In case you don't know who Zernona Clayton is, she is a pioneering civil rights leader and broadcasting executive known for her work with Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and as the first Black woman to host a primetime talk show in the South. This Okie from Muskogee, if you haven't heard that, you got to go back and research the song, but she's from Oklahoma and she's from Muskogee. This Okie from Muskogee is 95 years old young and still in tune with what is happening in the world today. Not only did she work with Reverend Jesse Jackson and Reverend Dr. King, she worked for the National Urban League and the Southern Christian Leadership Conference. She became the first African American from the Southern United States to host a daily primetime talk show. She became a corporate vice president for Turner Broadcasting. Clayton created the Trumpet Foundation, and I'm sure all of you know the Trumpet Foundation. She was instrumental in the development of the International Civil Rights Walk of Fame that is run in partnership with the Trumpet Awards Foundation to honor the achievements of African Americans in civil rights and civil rights advocates. In 1966, This is important. Janona Clayton coordinated the Doctors Committee for Implementation, a group of African American physicians who worked for and achieved the desegregation of all Atlanta hospitals. You take that for granted today, don't you? You do. The Doctors Committee served as a model for nationwide hospital desegregation and was honored by the National Medical Association. Now, I just want to do my part to help WCEG give Mrs. Clayton some verbal flowers while she can still hear and appreciate how much we cherish all that she has done and continues to do to liberate, educate, and facilitate that future day when all God's children, Black and white men, Jews and Gentiles, Protestants and Catholics, will be able to join hands in singing the words of the old Negro spiritual, free at last, free at last. Thank God Almighty, we are free at last. Mrs. Clayton, you are appreciated. Though many may not know your name, they know your work. You are the oil that keeps the civil rights wheel moving with purpose and efficiency. You are the personification of that wheel within the wheel. We know you are a humble servant, not prone to toot your own trumpet. But we at WCEG want you to know that we cherish you and will never forget that you were the wind beneath so many wings of justice. We thank you. I move on. Lift every voice, that's every voice, regardless of race, religion, or country of origin, and sing till earth and heaven ring. Ring with the harmony of liberty. That's everyone on one accord and pulling in the same direction with different voices and different cultures blending into a symphony of brotherhood and sisterhood. Let our rejoicing rise high as the listening skies, so that even God Almighty and the heavenly host take notice. Let us march on till victory is won. We have a long way to go, but we must press on and keep hope alive. You know, it's ironic that in February 2026, Black History Month, the President of the United States portrayed former President Barack Obama and his wife, both of whom are African American, as monkeys. And in the same month, Reverend Jesse Jackson died. By the general tolerance of the current president's behavior, we must understand that America has a long way to go in race relations. Yet the presence of former President Barack Obama, who acknowledges that his path in life was directly related to the trailblazing of Reverend Jesse Jackson, as the president at his funeral of Reverend Jackson, it sends a message to us all. That message is we have a long way to go, but the journey is not as long as it once was. We must all understand there is still much to be accomplished, and we must maintain our courage, keep our hands on the plow, and keep hope alive. By the way, on a personal note, I hope for my funeral to look similar to that of Reverend Jackson and that of Reverend Bill Lawson. If you don't know who Reverend Lawson is, look him up. I know that I won't have a crowd that large unless my grandchildren have a whole lot of more babies. But my life would have been lived in vain if people of every culture and every religion I have touched doesn't have a part in my going on to glory ceremony. I don't need a whitewashing of my life. I just want people to know that even in my darkest moments, there was a part of me that always tried to be the best that I could be. Now, we all fall short of the expectations of God. Some fall shorter than others. But through the grace of redemption, we understand that it is all about how you finish the race and not how you come out the blocks. Think about that, and let's all never forget the life and legacy of Reverend Jesse Lewis Jackson. Yesterday, which was Sunday, an attempt was made on the life of the mayor of New York. 2 weeks ago, an evil person killed and wounded several people in Austin, Texas. In the former incident, it was learned that the two men involved had been radicalized to Islamic terrorist dogma. I'm going to get into that in a minute. In the latter case, much of what has been made of the fact that the offender, the man who shot and killed several people, was wearing a sweatshirt with the writing "Property of Allah" and had an Iranian flag. Now, let's end the nonsense. Nowhere, nowhere in Abrahamic religions, that is Hebrew, Christianity, or Islam, is anyone commanded to kill people with whom they disagree, either politically or culturally. That nonsense permeated the ancient Crusades and remains with us today. To all the fake religious fanatics out there, if you believe that the God of Isaac, Ishmael, and Abraham is all present and all powerful, why does he need you to kill anyone? It's dumb. It's hypocritical. It's thinking that emanates from demented minds seeking to justify ungodly behavior. If you are hearing voices, or someone you know tells you they are hearing voices that are ordering them to kill people in the name of God, send them to our Dr. Wanzo or some other mental health professional. El Shaddai, God Almighty, requires neither you nor anyone else to kill in his name. He is perfectly capable of doing that himself if he wishes. Now, remember the prayer taught by Yeshua, I just might call him by his real name other than Jesus, what he said to his disciples, the lesson that he taught them. In that prayer, in that lesson, he said the following: Thy will be done. Remember at Gethsemane, Yeshua, when facing death, stated to his father, No, not my will, but your will be done. So if you keep saying God or Allah is all powerful and is in control, then let him do what he does best and you stay out of his business. I move on. So may I have a little swig of water? And maybe you need to have a swig of water. Thank you. Understand this is how we keep the pipes oiled and things going. I woke up this Sunday morning with my television set on the PBS channel. The program was about freedom of speech that is codified in the First Amendment of the United States Constitution. allow me to educate people to a few things that I did not know when I was younger, and that many people do not realize today. The freedom of speech that is spoken of in our Constitution relates to the fact that local, state, and federal governments cannot deny your freedom of speech. But individual companies or businesses do have the right to limit what you say. I personally first ran into this when I was writing letters to the editor in Philadelphia that were published in the Philadelphia Daily News. This is in my book, if you read my book. The Philadelphia Police Department took issue with an editorial I had written, which criticized the mayor of Philadelphia. I was called on the carpet, chewed out, and told that I was never again to write an editorial or make a public statement criticizing the city or the police department unless I received permission from my superiors. Now, can you believe that I argued with my chief inspector about this until he forced me to agree? It was a lesson learned. That's why I could not write something such as The Long Blue Walk, My Journey as a Philly Cop, until long after my career ended and my pension was secure. This is a word of warning to those who think they can say whatever they want on social media and not be penalized. Think again. Your employer has the right to limit what you say about them or those with whom they interact. Don't lose your employment because you misunderstand what freedom of speech really means. Think before you speak or write. As Dirty Harry once said, a man's got to know his limitations. We move on. There is so much trouble in the world at this moment that when one begins to prioritize problems, one doesn't know where to start. Gas prices are high, but the president tells us they are low. Food prices are high, but government officials say prices have remained steady. The president tells us he is placing tariffs on foreign countries, yet countries don't pay tariffs. Tariffs are taxes that are paid for by American businesses and American citizens. Now, people who are joyful in their ignorance believe the president, even though they are spending more money than a year ago for the same products they buy today. Now, before I get some of the obvious concerns to other obvious concerns, let me talk about the subject that burns my patoot. Armageddon. It's all flows. It's all part of the same thing. You'll get it at the end. How many of you remember that book called The Late Great Planet Earth? It was written by Hal Lindsey in 1970, made into a television movie in 1974. This book predicted the end of days and the second coming of Yeshua HaMashiach ben Elohim, who you call Jesus, the Messiah, the Son of God. The author based his work on the biblical books of Daniel, Ezekiel, and Revelations. Now, most of you don't know that when the Emperor Constantine convened the Nicene Conference to determine which writing should become part of that which we call the Bible, the books of John, Enoch, the Apocalypse of Peter, Hebrews, and Revelations were among the most debated for inclusion into the Bible. The Johannine community and its leaders were successful in having the book of John included. After much debate, the book of Revelations won out over the Apocalypse of Peter. Now, let's remember that the Bible was written by men who were inspired by God. It was not the other way around. Now, if churches taught you about Constantine as much as they talk about Paul, you would know that. But let's get back to Hal Lindsey. Hal Lindsey was able to secure himself a long-standing program on the Trinity Broadcasting Network. Lindsey convinced President Ronald Reagan and most of the rest of the world that the second coming would occur in the year 1988. This was based on a timetable originating from the partitioning of Palestine in 1948, which became Israel. Now, his assertion was false. It was just as false as those who predicted the end of times would come in the year 1000. It was just as false as Joanna Southcott, who predicted in 1813 that in the following year she would birth the second Messiah, even though she was 64 years old and a virgin. It was just as false as William Miller, who predicted the end would come in 1843 and had thousands of people seeking sanctuary on a mountain. It was just as false as the Halley's Comet panic of 1910, and just as false as the prediction of December 21st, 2012, which was based on the Mayan calendar. In the early 1980s, I heard a preacher say that the end of days comes when you die. That's an undeniable fact. Yet supposed devout Christians are stuck on apocalyptic predictions that seemingly have their origins in Pauline letters rather than the word of our idolic Savior, Yeshua HaMashiach ben Elohim, known as Jesus, the Messiah, Son of God. Here is what he said in Mark 13:31-32, when discussing the second coming. He said, "Heaven and earth will pass away, but my words will never pass away. But of that day or hour, no one knows, not even the angels in heaven," and this is important, "nor the Son, except the Father." Contrary to Hal Lindsey, after Yeshua rose from his death, his apostle asked in Acts 1:6, "Lord, are you restoring the kingdom of Israel at this time?" His response was in Act 1:7. He said, "It is not your place to know the times or the seasons which the Father has placed under his control." It is not your place to know the times or the seasons which the Father has placed under his control. End quote. I say all this because in these troubled times, when we have idiotic wars of selfishness created by government leaders who will not suffer any consequences for their decisions, the apocalyptic geniuses of today are speaking as if they know more than the original apostles, more than the angels, and more than the foundational person of the Christian faith, who the acknowledged Son of God. When you place yourself in the position of saying that you've seen signs of the second coming or the end of times, you are placing yourself in a higher position than Jesus said of himself. He said he did not know. How in the world do you know? Mark Twain once said, "It's better to be thought of a fool and keep your mouth shut than to open it and remove all doubt." End quote. If you call yourself a Christian, stop betraying what you say by predicting something that is totally out of your realm. Get over it. You're not John. You're not a soothsayer. You don't know. Let's talk about immigrations and customs enforcement. The killings of Renee Good and Alex Pretty are just two people out of at least eight who have been killed by federal agents or who have died while in immigration and customs enforcement custody in 2026 so far. The high profile shootings follow the deaths of 32 people in ICE custody in 2025. That's the highest number since 2004. And that was at the tail end of the COVID outbreak. Now, confirmed federal shootings of ICE or Border Patrol agents 2025 to 2026. Here's the names of a few. Some you know and some you won't. Keith Porter Jr., 43 years old, Black, United States citizen, shot by an off-duty ICE agent outside Los Angeles on December 31st, 2025. He was firing a gun into the air before the agent approached and shot him. I assume he was firing gun up in the air for New Year's celebration, which I think is dumb anyway, but it's not worth you getting killed over. Alex Jeffrey Pretty, we spoke of, 37 years old, U.S. citizen, white, nurse, shot in Minneapolis on January 4th, 2026. He was filming agents when one shoved another person. Freddie went to help the lady that had been knocked down by the ICE agent, and he was shot for it. Not only was he shot once, he was shot 10 times. He was shot while he was laying face up on the ground and not moving. Can you imagine? Can you imagine? This reminds me of Philadelphia, PA, and they put this under the rug. Several years ago, out in Southwest Philadelphia, a man who had been involved in a domestic issue left the house and was sort of confronted by police. They asked him to raise his hands. He pulls his hands out of his pocket, and they saw an object, and they shot him. They shot him 92 times. 92 times. What he was pulling out of his pocket wound up being a cell phone that was in his hand. They shot him 92 times. There were bullets that missed him and went through the windows and doors of other people's houses. He was shot 92 times. When anybody knows you get hit by a 9mm or a 40 caliber pistol, that surely by one, but definitely by two, you are totally incapacitated with 92 times. So here we have Alex Jeffrey Pretty, who did have a weapon. He didn't pull it. He had it in his waistband in his back. That was pulled out of his waistband by an ICE officer. He was shot after that 10 times. But y'all quiet about that. You don't care. Renee Nicole Good, also 37 years old, white, U.S. citizen, shot in Minneapolis on January 7th, 2026. According to ICE, her car was blocking traffic and agents ordered her out She backed away before being shot. I just ask you to look at the video. Just look at the video. There was no reason to shoot this lady. None at all. Ophelia Buchholz. She was a German national. She was shot by uh, no information on why. Oh, that must have been an actual shootout because Canadian border agent David Chris Malin was killed in the confrontation. So that was probably justified. Luis Gustavo Nunez Caceres, 42-year-old Honduran immigrant. He died in ICE custody in Texas after suffering multiple life-threatening medical emergencies. Geraldo Lunas Campos, he was a Cuban immigrant, excuse my tongue. He died in ICE custody in Texas, June 5, 2026. I'm sorry, June 3rd, 2026. The coroner or medical examiner ruled it a homicide. Uh, Lots of controversy about this one. Uh, it seems as though what I said happened and what actually happened that they have witnesses for are two completely different things. And according to witnesses, he was placed in a chokehold and strangled to death. And what the witnesses say is confirmed by the doctors who looked at the broken blood vessels and other things that determined that he was manually strangled to death. So there's a lot. Uh, ICE is just out of control. Uh, they've had 13 shootings into moving vehicles. 13. If this was police officers shooting into vehicles, you guys would be outraged. All over, there'd be demonstrations all over this country. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. Now, here is the future as I see it. It's all related, though it may not sound like it initially. Warm weather is coming. Many people, and this is a fact, are easily manipulated. Social media activists love creating chaos by using that medium to organize, quote, peaceful protest, end quote, usually in the evening and at night. Now, folks, do you remember Ferguson, Missouri? Remember the George Floyd riots in Seattle, Washington? Remember the 6 Days Watts riot in 1965? Remember the Atlanta riot of 2020 when the mayor surrendered an entire neighborhood to thugs, resulting in the murder of 8-year-old Sequoia Turner? My point is, not one good thing ever evolved from a riot. Nothing that requires you to participate in a protest that goes on into the night considers the safety of the protesters, the public, and law enforcement. I want to say it now because you're going to hear it in the days to come. I guarantee you, you're going to hear it. It is irresponsible reasoning and urgency to call for a protest in the evening or at night. I don't care who tells you or who organizes it, it's irresponsible. and it's dangerous. You know, my North Philadelphia neighborhood was destroyed by a riot in 1964. It took nearly 40 years for that area to be revitalized. 40 years. But the revitalization benefited no one who had businesses or homes destroyed. Think about that. But you're going to have people, they're out there right now getting it together, talking about what they're going to do. You just think about it. I am being emphatic with real world examples because this summer, irresponsible people seeking their 15 minutes of fame will be encouraging many of you to take to the streets to protest ICE, the Iranian war, and other causes, and to act violently. Violent protests normally only hurt the people who need help the most. Think about that. Think about all of these riots. I'm going to say it again. Violent protests normally only hurt the people who need help the most. Children are murdered, homes are burned down, businesses that are vital to a community are destroyed and may never return. My warning, be, be mindful of who is asking you to take to the streets. The organizers of protests in the 1950s and 1960s were careful about whom they permitted to protest with them. Hotheads were not permitted to participate. People who could not follow directions were not allowed to participate. Today's microwave generations don't have that type of discipline and concern for the safety of others. Yes, you have a right to protest, but when your protest involves hurting people, throwing objects, burning down businesses, and assaulting police officers, you have devolved from a constitutionally protected protester to a lawbreaker. Recent behaviors by government agents show that when you break the law for what seems like a minor infraction, you might be shot to death or beaten to death. Remember that. And don't tell me about, oh, yeah, well, they'll get sued. Yeah, they might get sued, but guess what? You'll be dead. So who does that benefit? Who does it benefit? You folks need to think. You really need to think. Let me move on as time moves on. I am going to talk about someone who I'm sure a lot of you have been waiting for me to speak on. Her name is Kristi Noem, pet killer. Now, let's give some credit to Donald Trump for firing pet killer Kristi Noem from her position as Secretary of Homeland Security, even though she still has another job, so she's still on the taxpayer's payroll. But let's keep it real. She was removed as Secretary of Homeland Security because she accentuated the poor decision making of the man who placed her in that position. There is little difference when you listen to them between Kristi Noem and Attorney General Pam Bondi. I watch these hearings on C-SPAN. I know many of you don't have time to do that, but I watch it. I take notes. To repeat a tag that Donald Trump usually places on African Americans, both sounded as if they are of, quote, low IQ, end quote. He usually refers that to African Americans. I'm going to refer it to Pam Bondi and Kristi Noem. Now, in her book, No Going Back, Kristi Noem describes shooting a male goat after it repeatedly chased and knocked down her children. and emitted a strong and unpleasant odor, which she said made the children terrified and disrupted her household. According to her account, she dragged the goat to a gravel pit, tied it to a post, and shot it. Now, the first shot wasn't enough. The goat was moaning in pain, so she retrieved another shell and finished the act, claiming she did not want the animal to suffer. Really? Now, she stated that the incident was, and I want you to pay attention to this, excuse me, she stated the incident was part of her broader philosophy of decisiveness, stating that leaders must address problems immediately, even when the actions are difficult, messy, and ugly. She wrote this in her book. She also cited the goat's behavior, chasing her children and being nasty and mean, as justification for her actions. I want y'all to think about that. Just replay that if you can. Add this incident to the killing of her pet dog, Cricket. Cricket was killed the same way and dumped in the same ditch. This is a mother guiding her children about proper, rational behavior. Now, she did this while she was a governor. Don't you try it. You will wind up in jail. It's a fact that people who enjoy mistreating animals have an extreme tendency to do the same to humans. You can ask Dr. Wanzo. I think she would tell you the same thing. Very likely, this Secretary of Homeland Security found dealing with immigrants as being, in her own words, difficult, messy, and ugly. Therefore, if a few unarmed immigrants or free speech advocates who were neither threatening nor aggressive are killed, it's no big thing. In her fractured reasoning, that behavior is justified. You must understand that no reputable business would hire a person for a management position who enjoys killing pets. Yet the president felt that such behavior fit into his master plan. There's an old saying, a rotten fish smells first from the head. Nome has gone from that department. But you know what? Trump remains. So let's temper our joy at her dismissal, because it looks as though by whom he appointed, not much is going to change, folks. Not much is going to change. Be on guard. Let's talk about the Iran war. Seems to be the big elephant in the room. Do any of you remember the movie Wag the Dog? This 1997 movie was a satire about a president who started a war to deflect the public from his being involved in a major scandal. Life is imitating art. Unlike art, people are dying. Americans, Iranians, Israelis, Jordanians, Yemeni, by the hundreds, if not thousands, in the Middle East. This is a war of choice and not a war of necessity. In violation of international law, Donald Trump has instituted a state sanctioned assassination. This racist dummy, who is a draft dodger, and his peanut brain Secretary of Defense believe that killing one man would solve their perceived problems. It has not and will not. Governments don't operate that way. There are always contingency plans and succession plans. We have that in our government. So Donald Trump and Bibi Netanyahu of Israel have started a conflict that has enveloped the entire Middle East. It's not about any threat to the United States. Remember, this president campaigned on keeping us out of forever wars. In President quotes, forever wars. Remember that just last week, he stated on social media that we have enough weapons to fight, quote, forever, end quote. Worse yet, neither the president nor his Secretary of Defense, I refuse to call him Secretary of War, have come up with the same reason we are in this war. Different days carry different messages. Now, the President of the United States is threatening to kill any Iranian leader whom he does not like. Think about that. Think about that. He's threatening to kill any Iranian leader whom he does not like. If this seems normal to you, you are MAGA qualified. Give yourself a pat on the back. Meanwhile, the pedophiles are rejoicing. These pedophiles, listen to this, are both Republican, Democratic, and every powerful thing in between. This is why many Democrats are not in favor of releasing the full content of the Jeffrey Epstein files. Sexual abuse of teenagers from 13 to 17 years of age is both fantasy and reality for the rich and powerful. You know, it was not that long ago that the owner of the New England Patriots, Robert Kraft, had charges dropped after he was caught up in a prostitution sting at the Orchids of Asia brothel in Jupiter, Florida. Videotapes of the participants in this sting disappeared mysteriously. Now, Robert Kraft, who is a large contributor to President Trump's political campaign fund, is among several National Football League owners mentioned in the Epstein files. Ladies and gentlemen, this is how the rich and powerful operate. Have you forgotten that, excuse me, have you forgotten that when Jeffrey Epstein was in prison under 24-hour surveillance, that he was able to die by hanging himself? Have you forgotten that just as with Robert Kraft, there are portions missing of the videotape that was supposed to be focused, it was part of a camera focused on Jeffrey Epstein. This is not a conspiracy theory. This is fact. We deal in facts on WCEG. Truth crushed to the earth will rise again. That was William Cullen Bryant. Well, we've covered a lot today. I hope we didn't cover things that I hope we brought some new light into certain things. But life is interesting, and I believe within the coming weeks it's going to get more interesting. And you know, it's easy to distance yourself when the bombs are not coming your way. And that's what happens to us in the United States. We're sort of namby-pamby about this, what's happening in the Middle East right now, because the bombs are not hitting here. They are not killing Americans. That's fortunate for us, but it's sad on our perspective because each day in the past 10 days, each day, innocent people are being killed. Innocent people, men, women, and children who have no say in anything, who just want to go about their lives and live productive and fruitful lives. They are being killed every day. And we can't be silent about it, folks. We can't be silent. I read you a poem a month ago. No man is an island. No man walks alone. We are all part of the same collective. If you're into my Star Trek, we're all part of it. We're all human. We all need to care about one another. It's sad. And this country needs a wake up call. I'm hoping that the wake up call comes this November and that November is not too late because this has to be turned around before it gets worse. It's going to be more at stake than just your spending money, extra money at the gas pump when gas prices do go over to $4 or $5 a gallon. When food prices skyrocket to the point that you are going to have to ration what you buy and how you buy it. It's going to get worse. And that's the reality we live in. Well, I thank all of you for joining us on this installment of Issues and Answers on the WCEG Digital Media Enterprise Network. Now, in 2 weeks, we shall feature Gwinnett County Magistrate Judge Regina Matthews. She will enlighten us on how difficult it is to run for the office of judge. I had no idea. And why we all should pay more attention to judicial elections. I could tell you, I've had some personal experiences with judges, and because of my prior experience as a police officer, I always pay attention to judicial elections, and I look up the qualifications of who I vote to put in the office. I don't just look it up on election day. It's important. Um, I mean, in Philadelphia, we had a judge who got away with killing his wife, sat on the bench. We had another judge who was involved with a case that affected me personally as a civilian. He had an extreme gambling habit, and the people who, the offender who committed the offense against my household, uh, paid the judge off and got off, even though he had a city issued pistol in his possession. That pistol was issued to me as a police officer. He had that in his possession. And the only way they found it out is that it's just sort of like just desserts. Uh, he and his wife got into an argument, and his wife picked up that pistol and shot him where no man wants to be shot. And that's how they found my gun. He's alive today, but he's a little deficient, to put it mildly. Well, anyway, thank you for joining us today. I hope to see you soon. That'll be surely in 2 weeks if nothing else big comes up. It's always great to speak with you and to read your comments and joining us on the ever widening world of WCEG Digital Media Enterprises, Norman A.